And I wanted to make sure that there was an actual, truthful account of what happened, that things about I couldn't talk about 30 years ago.
Devil in the details. Tonight, there are new revelations concerning the West Memphis Three from one of the former lead attorneys on the case.
He's written a new book there. For the first time, he's sharing things never shared before.
Kim Clark went to Paragould, Arkansas for the exclusive.
The killer is alive today. I'm sure of it.
That's from the first line of A Harvest of Innocence, the untold story of the West Memphis Three murder case.
You've written a book about the trial. Why now?
It's a very good question. I didn't want to paint a target on any of them.
Almost 32 years ago, May 1993, the nude bodies of 3 young boys were pulled from a drainage ditch in the Robin Hood Hills of West Memphis. Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers had been beaten, their hands bound by their own shoelaces.
Rare, you don't see triple homicides of 8-year-old children. They're extremely rare.
Talk of sexual mutilation and satanic rituals led to demands for immediate arrests.
When people are scared, they naturally turn to the supernatural as an explanation, and we can look back in history to things like the Salem witch trials, for example. Same thing happened.
Within a month of the discovery of the boys' bodies, 18-year-old Damian Eccles, 16-year-old Jason Baldwin, and 17-year-old Jesse Miskelly were served up as suspects. At the time, Dan Stidham, now an Arkansas District Court judge in Paragould, was working part-time as a public defender.
I had children the same age as the children who were murdered. My natural instinct, because that's what I went to law school for, is to help people.
Little did Stidham know that offering to help one of the suspects in particular would turn him into a pariah.
But nobody wanted to touch Mr. Miskelly's case because he, quote-unquote, confessed. So I'm not the most popular guy in West Memphis anymore, I don't think.
Stidham said he quickly realized what Miskelly told investigators was anything but the truth.
This kid's telling me he's there, but he can't get the story right. And it's like, if you saw something like this happen, you would remember it, because it would be so traumatic of an event, you would remember every detail.
In court, the young attorney used a false confession defense of his client, a legal first. It didn't work, and a jury convicted all 3. Eccles was sentenced to death. Baldwin and Miskelly to life in prison.
It's a case study in wrongful convictions, actually.
In 2011, 18 years after their convictions, the West Memphis Three were released from prison on an Alfred plea. That's a guilty plea where the defendants maintain their innocence.
This was an ugly way out of an even uglier situation for the state of Arkansas. And I don't like it. Even though the West Memphis Three are free, they're not exonerated.
Which brings us back to why Judge Stidham waited until now to publicly share his side of the story.
Life happens, and I lost a child, and that kind of derailed the project for a few months so I could grieve. But I also learned that what these parents must have felt like, probably, I got 34 years of my son, but they only got 8 with theirs, so I wanted to make sure that I poured my experience of grief through the filter.
Stidham believes he knows the identity of the real killer and believes justice will come for the victims' families and the West Memphis Three.
We could get some results back as early as next month.
Results from?
The new DNA testing that the Arkansas Supreme Court allowed.
Is that the evidence that was collected from the scene?
Yes.
That was never really tested?
Yes. Now we got new technology that can amplify this stuff. And so we have a real good chance of finding out who did this.
In Paragould, Arkansas, Kim Clark, Action News 5.
Now, in 2007, DNA testing of crime scene evidence excluded all 3 men and detected the DNA of another man who could not be identified. Advances in DNA technology since then could now identify the actual perpetrator. And in April of last year, the Arkansas Supreme Court, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly, they said they can now request new DNA testing in the case, reversing a 2022 lower court ruling that denied Eccles' request.